customer experience management strategies, as well as implement and roll them out. So I'm going to ask Roy to just give us a bit of introduction and some ideas, well, not ideas, some background history to him. So Roy, thanks very much for joining us today, and over to you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for having me. Yes, as Linda says, I've been in training and development now for the last 17 years, with the last sort of 8 years focused on the actual customer relationship and how that influences your brand in a positive way, how that creates a long-term customer as opposed to just doing a one-off sale. So yes, spent a lot of time doing training mainly in the automotive industry for premium German brands, really focusing on the actual sales element of it, the process side of it, but more importantly, how that relationship impacts on the customer and how that impacts on your future business.
Great, thanks for that, Roy. I'm sure you'll have some pearls to deliver to us today, and we're looking forward to hearing them.
I hope so.
Just a quick thanks to our amazing team who put together the graphics and all the technical geniuses to put together the slides, etc. So thanks very much. And right, without further ado, I'm going to get into it, just an understanding of how we develop these slides. So, you know, we give you a bit of a context about the topic that we're speaking about. We introduce you to the guest speaker, if there is one. And then we give you 4 things that you can focus on that topic that may assist and give you some guidelines as to where to go with it. During the process, we have some quick polls. So the quick polls are done by having a QR code on the screen. You can scan it in using a normal cell phone scanner. And then if you can answer it, we give you the response at the end of the session, just so that you can also get a feel for how others are feeling. So let's just go off into, just give me 1 second. Right, so we always ask, what do customers really want? That's the topic of today. And really, in essence, it's they want the win without the spin. And they want it from all your people, not just from your advertising department. And that's usually the issue, is that what we say we do and what we advertise and what we promise is not necessarily always delivered by the individuals that you are seeing and you are interacting with on a day-to-day basis. So what they really want is the win without the spin. So the question is, you know, what is the alignment between what we actually say, what we do, and what we actually do? So a lot of people get it right, a lot of people get it wrong. And do people experience that consistently? Do they get it from everybody, or do they get Roy's version of your brand, Linda's version of your brand, Charles's version of your brand, or is there a consistency of brand messaging and brand experience? And I think those 2 things are both really important. So I've got a short video that I'm going to just play, which is one of our products, and then I'm going to have Roy just give you some insight as far as his experience has gone.
In a world where the customer is considered royalty, it's difficult to ignore the pressure placed on organizations to serve their sovereignty. The tricky part of this kind of servitude, however, is the fact that all customers wear crowns and sit on thrones of their own. Our customers have expectations, more often than not dictated through our marketing and what we as organizations propose as our offerings. Customers select our services or offerings based on what we promise them. We in turn must deliver and strive to exceed their expectations. Adapting and responding to the requirements of each customer is an almost impossible task, but needs to be considered. Who is responsible for the customer experience? And what do we do to make them feel as royal as possible? The customer's experience determines your organization's reputation, the single most valuable intangible asset that any organization possesses. Talk to Us are no strangers at providing organizations with fun and energetic means to actively engage their employees in a multitude of ways. Win Without the Spin is Talk to Us's latest offering to hit organizations around Johannesburg. Let us facilitate a fun-filled and highly meaningful session with your employees, where they learn about the power of teaming, messaging, collective narrative, and ultimately understanding the needs of their every customer. Employees will play to learn that in organizations with multiple touchpoints or customer interfaces, that they are all responsible for delivering a stellar performance, an ovation if you will. Customer custodianship. Employees must not underestimate the importance of their unique role. Sounds like work? Why should it be? Engage and talk to us as tailor-made games, especially adapted to suit the context of your unique organization. Like our audiences or customers, no one organization is alike. At Talk to Us, we understand this. Allow us to work alongside your people in a way that embraces their unique set of circumstances. Custodians of your institution must come to understand the vital role that they play in honoring the customer experience, one that they have ultimately created. Begin this process with us and embark on a passage to ovation. Every action must be worthy of applause and delight. Win without the spin plays on the spinning wheel game to win, a matter of luck. Fortune favors the brave, but planning, consideration, and deliberate actions favor all who dare to engage. Ensure that nothing is left to chance. Every spin must result in a win. Shuffle your way through our emoticon card decks to learn about the power of emotions and the impact of emotional echo chambers. Embrace the chaos of emotion, understanding the power of emotion, and learn to work with it. Key is understanding that emotions drive behaviors and impact on vital decision making. Any inconsistent or misaligned experience erodes away at trust and results in disgruntled, or worse, lost customers. Lastly, ignite your creativity from the inside out and play to get the importance of understanding the talk, adopting the talk, and walking the talk. Organizations must ensure that internal practices are aligned with the promises being made to their customers. Expectations must be met by experience. Ditch the preach and teach models of antiquated facilitation sessions and invigorate your employees. Allow them to rediscover their excitement and to fall in love with their work. Love what you do and do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life again. Talk to us. Engage, explore, experience. You talk, we listen.
Roy, your thoughts on that quick clip?
Yeah, absolutely, Linda. I think certainly today it really is all about the relationship that you have with your customer. And how do we go about building relationships with customers? Well, it's quite complex, and we probably don't have all that time to go through it. But the important thing to remember is that you need to wake up with a positive focus, and that you're not just going to do a sale today, but more so focus on building a relationship with that customer. You want to make sure that you give that customer a tailored individual experience, one that is suited to them, one that's going to be easy for them, one that is going to be enjoyable. And in doing so, hopefully you're going to have a customer for life in doing that.
Yeah, I think Roy's quite correct there. And I think what's important here is this is an intangible asset. So if it's your business, you're the owner, or if you're the CEO of a big business, you actually don't know what your people are doing while they're in front of your customer. And I think it's important that you provide them with the tools and the knowledge regarding what it is that you offer, how you would like that experience to be received by the customer, and in fact, what you would like the customer to experience. So after that little short interlude and giving you some context, I just want to take us through what the 4 things are. So the old way of thinking is that the spin is what wins the customer. If we've got a fantastic advertising campaign, or we have a fantastic launch, or we have a fantastic promotion, we're going to win over millions of customers. And yes, you might get somebody that is drawn to you, but if there's no long-term consistency of service delivery, you're going to lose that customer. And in fact, you're going to have a customer who is now not engaged, but is actively disengaged. He will use something like, "Hello, Peter," or something to actually be negative about your brand. So it's really important that you realize it's not about the spin. Don't promise things that you can't deliver. Because clients have wised up to those spins. They all look at it and they say, yeah, right, we've heard that one before. So, and they also all know the saying, if it's too good to be true, probably is. It probably isn't true. And that's why it seems to be too good to be true. So I think those are 2 key areas. Always remember what you promise is you need to deliver. Then let's just go into the 4 things. Does everybody understand the lifetime value of a client. Do you know what it means to have a client for life? And what does that mean from a monetary point of view? So we're going to show you something there. Then we're going to just talk about why clients leave. Why would you lose clients? What is the background to losing clients? And then how would you cool down a client? So these are tips if you're client facing. What would you do to make sure a client calms down, and how can you help? And then also, what would a recovery be? And there's 4 steps you can take to recovering a client, or to letting the client recover and ensure you retain the relationship. And if you get those right, you'll have a satisfied client for life, which will build a renowned, confident brand, which is obviously what everybody wants. What is the lifetime value of a client? And so I think people don't always look at that. They don't always look at what the lifetime value is. They just look at today's sale. So if you had to take the revenue for that specific transaction, and if you could recreate that transaction once or twice or 3 times a year, what would those transactions amount to over a year? What would the revenue for the year be based on that? In other words, the profit that you made out of it. The number of years that you may or may not retain that client if your product or your service stays up to date. The customer lifetime revenue. The likelihood of great service keeping, which then keeps your customers. So the likelihood of the great service keeps your customers. And ultimately, the return on investment that one single transaction could result in. And I think maybe it's a bit like, when you buy something and you buy it on credit, somebody says, oh, it's only 100 Rand a month, but multiply that out over a year, add on the interest, etc., and it really becomes quite expensive and far more expansive than what you thought. And I think this is the same thing with the lifetime value of your clients. What do you think, Roy?
No, absolutely, Linda. You mentioned that word humanistic way earlier on, and I think more and more research is telling us that consumers alike want to deal with an organization, a brand, an individual, one that they can trust, and one who's going to deliver on their promise, as you said earlier on. So the relationship is really, really important, and that we work really hard to build that relationship. Often you may have heard people say, well, why did somebody say that, or why did they do that? The reality is why they said something different or did something differently to the way that you would do it is because they're probably a different personality type to yourself. It's not that they're idiots or they're clueless or anything like that. They just have a different way in which to deal with things. And I think that's really important that we understand when it comes to dealing with our customers. The customer sitting in front of us is not necessarily going to want to do follow the process that you're going to want, or that you're going to follow, or that your business processes dictate that you need to follow. It really today, if we're going to look at a lifetime value of a customer and make a customer a lifetime asset, we really need to focus on getting to know that customer, understanding what their specific personality types is. What are the characteristics that make up their personality type, and then having the ability to be able to adapt to give them the type of experience that they want, not the type of experience that we think they should have.
Absolutely, and I think it comes back to this whole concept of know your customer versus knowing about your customer. So there is a difference, and do you understand that customers' long-term needs? What is their situation? So I think it's a bit like leadership, which is situational. Customers are too. They have got very different needs in different situations, and can you as a member of a team pivot to actually understand that and then meet that situation and deliver accordingly. And it's when you can do that as individuals and organizations, as well as the organization itself, that your brand will become renowned, and you will get confidence in the brand, and you will build trust and the long-term relationships, which is really what you're trying to achieve. So I think that's really important, is to understand the value of a long-term return customer. It is also always easier to sell a new product or new service an existing customer than what it is to sell it to to an existing customer than to a new customer, because a new customer has never experienced your brand, and it's going to be difficult for them to leave an old brand. Often the barriers to exit with brands is quite large, and so you're really going to have to buy them if you want business. And then if you've got it, it is absolutely crazy to lose that ongoing business through bad customer relations. So let's have a look at the next element, which is, why do clients leave a brand? What is the likelihood that they'll leave, and why would they leave? So let's just have a look at some of the stats regarding that. So likelihood that customers will repurchase is if they've got a complaint, but they feel that it's not being made, they'll just go somewhere else. That is one of the reasons they would leave, and you wouldn't even know about it. They just move on. If a complaint has been made, but it has not been resolved, that is another reason that they will go to another organization to purchase. If, however, they have made a complaint and you've resolved it, 54% of them will remain with you. They'll say, fine, you know what, the guys might have blown this one, but I will remain because I understand the brand, it's a good product, etc. And then 82% of the people will remain with the brand if they believe that it was resolved quickly and adequately. So the next graph or pie graph at the bottom might be a bit small for you to see, but I'll just mention it, that people leave brands because there are better products and services, and only 16% of those people will leave the brand for that reason. 12% believe they'll go somewhere because it's more convenient or it's closer located, etc. Still quite a small percentage. The company or the employees did not go out of their way. 30% of people say they leave a brand because the company or the employees that they interacted with did not go out of their way to deliver what they believe they should be receiving. 30% is a huge chunk. And then cheaper products or services. We all think that people leave because our products are not priced right. 8% of people leave for that reason. And then employees were unhelpful, rude, or unacknowledgeable, 34%. So people leave your brand. 64% of your customer retention is reliant on the experience your people create for the customer. And I think that's a huge amount. I think that is something that crazy if people believe that they can retain customers without looking at how they deliver the experience. Roy, how do you find companies manage this?
Yeah, Linda, that percentage is a real eye-opener, and as you said, it really just boils down to the relationship you have with the customer, how you manage that customer. Let's be honest, you know, a lot of customers or consumers, they understand that things go wrong when they're purchasing things or involved with, or in with services. But the reality is most of them are pretty understanding. It's how we deal with it that's really, really important. And you know, I think today we've got all this technology that's supposed to make our lives a little bit simpler and a little bit easier, but is it really doing that in reality? I'm not so sure. And you know, consumers are saying we just want it to be easy. We want it to be simple and enjoyable. So you know, again, it kind of goes back to what I'm saying when it comes to complaint resolution and why customers leave. It's probably because we haven't really looked after them. When I say them as an individual, them as a person, we haven't got to know them. So again, it's really, really important that we get to know our customers and understand and give them that sort of tailored individual experience.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think that you're right about the technology. I cannot tell you how many people say to me that if we have to phone somewhere, especially now, because a lot of bank branches weren't open, a lot of organizational branches weren't open, and so they're wanting to operate from home and they're wanting to operate by digital means. But every single time you are wanting to do something digitally and you phone them, there's an IVR. And the question that you have is not a standard question because we're not working in standard times. And so there is no button to press. There is no, I need to understand what happens in this situation, press button 10. There isn't a button 10 because that situation has never arisen before. And people are tearing the hair out their heads as a result of this. So I think there needs to be a greater shift towards person-to-person conversations. And like you say, Roy, understanding your client and understanding their issues, and not just trying to lump them all together with one, either some kind of robotic response or an IVR. Those things are really at the moment killing customer-client relationships. Right, so given now that we understand what the value is of a lifetime customer, and we also understand why customers leave, and we really realize that 64% of our business's success is based on the person who is client facing and the person at the coalface's ability to deal with and build relationships with customers. We've got two hints here, or two tips that we can give you in areas of how to calm customers down if you're at the coalface, and then how to fix a problem. So it's cooling down a hot client and a 4-step recovery, because I think those are really valid in our situation today. So the first one is really, if you look at how would you cool down a customer, they're irate, they've gone off pop at you and they're most upset. The first thing is try and lock in, engage the customer directly, giving them your full attention. So when they midstream through a rant, the last thing to do is say, oh, just hold on a second, I just want to answer my cell phone, because that's not going to work, okay? They need to understand that you're there, and not only are you there, you're there for them, and I think that's the important thing. Let them have their vent, okay? So let them say that they're angry, let them, because in actual fact, you'll be surprised what you will hear in that vent. Listen to what they're saying. Don't immediately start thinking of what the defense strategy is going to be. Listen to what they say. And if you don't listen to what they say, they're just going to start the whole exercise all over again, because they believe that you've not heard the first part. You're just responding to the most recent part of that conversation. So don't think about what you're going to say and spend your energy on thinking about your defense strategy. Just listen to the entire rant. Empathize, okay? They need to know that you feel their pain. So you need to be able to identify with them. And I mean, really identify with them. You would probably be just as angry if the same thing had happened to you. Show them that you believe they have a right to their annoyance. Match their energy. If you can match their energy with I understand it, I'll get back to you, I just need to go and speak to a manager, as opposed to, yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. It's very different. So match their energy, because that also shows that you understand their level of frustration. Restate the emotion and content. Okay, so if you can take their issues, you know, we so often say to children, use your words when they are angry with something, because it appears like that people are always angry, annoyed, or I think it's angry, annoyed, frustrated. But there's a whole barrage of other emotions that come into it. They're disappointed, okay? And that might be a key one. They thought they were going to get this, and now they've got that. So talk to them and say to them, and you try and work out in your own mind, is this disappointment or is it anger? And if it is anger, maybe the anger is founded in disappointment, so go to the disappointment. So it's really trying to understand the emotion and state it in words so that they can also understand it better themselves, because unfortunately our emotions hijack us, and when you're emotional about something, you probably find you're going to say things you wish you'd never said, and it's always better if somebody can calm that down and actually position it in the words that make sense and put words to the emotions, and give them a summarized, sanitized version of it with some of the emotions taken out. Then the next thing to do is problem solve. So if you can get to what the real problem is, not what the annoyance factor is or the disappointment factor is. The real problem is, although you're disappointed, the thing that has gone wrong or the thing that is not working is this, and I understand your disappointment, but rather get to what the problem is. You can then actually discuss it with them, and you can come up with a process to brainstorm solutions or agree upon solutions. If all else fails and you just cannot come right, I think that's the time when you need to bail out. In other words, you need to basically say, if you can recall, one of the things is that the staff got in the way when there were problems and they didn't escalate it quick enough. They tried and tried to resolve it, but they didn't have the ability or the authority to fix the problem, but they just kept on frustrating you. You need to know when is now a good time to bail out and escalate it to the next person so that the customer can get some kind of satisfaction. And I think that's really important. So understand when is a good time for you to bail out. Right, so that gives you some ideas of how to cool down a hot customer. There are a million others. I could think of 7 when we put this presentation together, and in our experience, what are some of the ones that a lot of our people that we speak to at client facing that have got this problem. Roy, do you also feel that these are accurate?
Linda, I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head there. I think, a couple of things to add there, and reiterating or echoing what you were saying. Our natural reaction to when we are faced with a concern or a complaint from a customer is to become defensive. It's our natural human reaction. So that's the first thing we need to realize. And obviously, and a lot of times when customers do throw up a concern or a complaint, we start to push back. So it's really, really important that we manage that effectively. We don't push back, and we do show that empathy that you mentioned. And I think it's really about asking the right questions to fully understand what the customer's concerns are, because often we think we know why the customer's upset or why they have a concern, but when we start coming up with a solution, we realize that the solution doesn't actually tackle the concern or the complaint. So I really would say, yes, you're right, let them vent, but ask all the questions, the right questions, to fully understand what that concern is once they have vented. And then once you've done that and you fully understand what that concern is, then you can find a solution to make the issue go away. Ideally, if you can find more than one solution, and then give the customer the choice, let them choose which one of those solutions is going to be best suited to make sure that that problem has been fully resolved.
Absolutely, I agree with those choices, because often you actually throw fuel on the flame if you just give them one choice, because it might not be the one they want. So I absolutely 100% agree with that. Right, so now we've understood how to cool down a client when you're at the coalface, and believe you me, that is often very difficult, but it is such an essential part of keeping customers. And then what could a recovery look like? How could you keep them to maintain them for that long-term period so that you have that long-term customer and you get the return on investment from that? So the first thing is to apologize with empathy. And I think there's a I'm sorry, and then there's a true I'm sorry. And I don't always think it has to be I'm sorry. It's I can understand why you're disappointed. We're going to do everything we can to sort it out. So I think it's just that ability to apologize and be genuine and authentic about it. That is quite key. Then is to try and understand, as Roy mentioned earlier, the whole situation, deconstruct it, destack it, understand where the anger comes from. How do we manage that anger versus actually sorting out the problem? And if there are 1 or 2 critical situations, give them the options. I agree with that as well. And then go the extra mile. So identify what an extra mile is. If somebody's had some sour milk in their coffee, you obviously can't give them a free upgrade to first class. So it's a bit like the punishment fits the crime. This is the same thing. So understand the outcome of it. What has the damage been to them? And therefore, what should the resolution be? And then follow up with them. No later than 48 hours would probably be good, because after 48 hours, they believe firmly that you've now just forgotten about them, and they will already be shopping around for the next best thing. And it could be in a number of ways that you follow up with them. It could be in all of them, just to make sure that you've covered your bases. Roy, do you have some concepts there that you'd like to share in your experience?
Linda, I think certainly with the first point there, apologies and empathy is really, really important. I'm sure all of us can think back to an experience where we've had a concern or a complaint, or we've raised a complaint, and the person hasn't actually said the words, "I'm sorry." And if they have said it, it hasn't come across as being sincere. So I think, that is absolutely key. If you're going to resolve the issue, you're going to recover the issue, it's really about being really, really sincere when it comes to that apology. And just say the words, "I'm really sorry." And you're right, you could say, "I understand how you feel," but just throw in that apology. Say, "I'm sorry," because people don't do it today.
No, I do believe you're right there. I think it's also just that whole concept of not accepting responsibility.
Yeah.
Always trying to find somebody or something else to blame, and I think that is an issue. I think it's to take that responsibility and say, this is an issue. Might not be me personally who's got who's made the mistake or who's done something incorrect or why the client is upset. It might be something that the organization, one of their processes might not align, or there might have been duplication of something. But it is to say, "I'm sorry for and on behalf of the organization," and that authenticity is so important. I agree. It is absolutely 100% relevant, is to be able to do that apology with authenticity. Roy is in the Netherlands, a South African who's now living in the Netherlands, and I just wanted to find out from him, how does customer service vary between the Netherlands and South Africa, Roy?
Linda, yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I've not lived in South Africa since 2006, and I've got to be honest, every time I've revisited or I've come home, I've always found the customer experience to be really, really good there. If I could speak about customer service generally in Europe, there's a couple of countries, I won't mention their names, but where I just think the customer service is absolutely appalling. Again, it goes back to people do not take the customer seriously. They don't take the customer complaint seriously. They're just not involved. They don't take ownership for that responsibility. I will say, however, that since living in the Netherlands, I've been here for just over 3 years now. We have had very, very, very few experiences where we've had reason to grumble or complain about the customer experience. So overall, I think, certainly in the Netherlands, there's a really huge focus on customer experience and keeping that customer for life methodology.
It's interesting. I often, when we work with clients, I always wonder, is it because employees just are not interested in delivering the experience? Is it because they don't know how, because there isn't an experience mapped out and quite obvious to them? Or is it because they don't have the tools or the right, they're not empowered, they don't have the right equipment to do it? I always wonder, why are they not wanting to deliver the right experience? Because I think it's counterintuitive to human nature. I think human nature for me is most people want to help one another, and you see that especially in times like COVID or like this explosion in Lebanon. There is a human need to want to help each other, but then in certain circumstances you just see it not happening. And I so often wonder, what is the underlying cause of people not wanting to deliver the service? Have you any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Linda, certainly. I think, I think it certainly comes down to that word that you mentioned, empowerment. I've run a number of programs regarding a sort of customer relationship and getting to understand your customer. And the one thing that we really focus on is that if you are going to be involved in your customer, you're going to be able to resolve their concerns, issues. You need to make certain decisions in the role that you do. And we find in a lot of cases, those individuals are not empowered. They don't have the tools to be able to make those decisions. So often, you hear the comments, well, that's above my pay grade, or I need to go and speak to my manager, or something like that. And it just really boils down to they're not being empowered to be able to make those decisions. And as a result, it's not giving the customer a nice, smooth, easy experience.
No, that resonates with me. I wonder if the people watching this, if it resonates with them as well, because I think we are all at some stage in our lives, we are all at the receiving end of bad service, and we've all been there before. So that absolutely resonates with me. I've had so many people say to me, that is the process, I can't change it, there's nothing I can do about it. And that's very sad, because I think that is one of the main reasons. So thanks for that little interlude. If you have a look at, you can retain a lifetime customer and you understand the value of it, and you can go through the 4 different categories that we've said. There'll be smooth sailing through whether it's blue skies or blue water in our new work order, world order, and you'll have a satisfied client. You'll build a renowned, confident brand. And we always talk about confident brands and why people want them. Well, because people want to cuddle up to confidence. They are attracted to it. It's just one of those things. And just understand, I'm talking confident, not arrogant. And there's a difference there, quite a large one actually. Right, so what would success look like if your customer experience management was really good and it worked very well? The first thing is you would, as Roy and I have mentioned throughout, you would understand your customers and they would understand you, and that builds a long-term relationship. Long-term relationships, if you do by any chance have a slip up in the service delivery, it is so much easier to overcome it and to be forgiven than if you don't have a good relationship and a long-lasting relationship with the client. Then you would have clients for life, because they will continue to come back as long as you keep your product new. You can't be Nokia and now not renew your product. We've gone through the Nokia route before, but you will have clients for life if you can manage good customer experience, because people will want to come back. You will have many followers, and aren't we all looking for followers? If you remember, last week's webinar was about followership. And there's a bit of a stigma attached to followership, and I have no idea why, because we're all followers. At some stage in our life, every single one of us follow everything. If we're not followers all the time, we're all slaves to someone else and followers to things that happen. And then lastly, you would build a confident, renowned brand. Those are all the areas that I believe you would deliver and have if you had good client experience management. Roy, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, Linda, absolutely. I think spot on there. I think, again, going back to the relationship is really, really important. And just to echo what you were saying, that, to build or to resolve issues or conflict with a customer when you have that relationship is much, much easier. I think, if research shows that, a happy client is likely to come back and use your services again or buy your product again, but also a happy customer will always tell 2 of their friends or business colleagues, and that usually translates into additional sales. And I always say to my audience, I say, you know what, they're always complaining to me because our business is so hard and there's so much competition and there's so much choice out there for consumers, and they've got to prospect all the time. And I say to them, the easiest way to prospect is look after your existing customers, because they will prospect for you. So build that relationship and yeah, absolutely, grow that business. That's what success will look like.
That's so absolutely true. I remember reading an article that General Motors actually cut down on, I don't know what percentage of their PR budget, because they realized that if they take that and invest it in keeping their staff informed about what they're doing, where they're going, how they're doing it, their staff are their best advocates.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, absolutely. And I think that is one of the things where I think there needs to be a massive shift in the new work order. Thanks to Roy for being with us today and sharing his vast experience and knowledge. And then thanks to me. I'm really appreciative of your viewership as always. Thanks very much. We'll see you next week. Have a great week. Thanks everybody. Ciao.